Welcome to a new video and a new place. I'm here in Ortenberg, which is one of the little villages in Hessen, close to Frankfurt. And I'm here right now to test out those two bad boys here, the Mate 60 Pro against the Oppo Find X6 Pro. So let's get started. I'm staying here in a beautiful little apartment and I want to show you right now the camera specs of those two bad boys. As you can see here, both feature triple lens setup, but the highlight on the Oppo Find X6 Pro is definitely the 1-inch size sensor, but the other ones are no slouch either. The zoom and the ultra wide angle, also large 1/1.5-inch sized sensors, where the highlight of the Mate 60 Pro is the variable aperture on its very big kind of sensor as well, 1/1.28-inch sized sensor, which has is accompanied by a telezoom 3.5 times and also a good ultra wide angle that is, I think, even wider than the one on the Oppo. And of course we have some front-facing front-facing cameras as well, and we want to do a video about them right now, so let's do it. We start off with the Mate 60 Pro in its front-facing video camera, 4K 30 frames per second. I'm recording right now, but we can go to up 4K 60 frames per second. We have the possibility to go to wide, so you can see a little bit more about like these tiny houses that are here on this property as well. And there's the main house where we are staying, by the way, and then there's a little bit of water there in the background, as you can see. And if you don't want to see everything, you can just go to the 1-inch to the 1x zoom, and this is how this looks like. And we can go back to 0.8 times, so this is how 0.8 times looks like. And stabilization is working fine, I would say. Let's go down here to see how good stabilization is working. I think it's good enough. What do you think? We also have 4K 30 frames per second recording on the Oppo Find X6 Pro, but with a little caveat here, because as soon as I start moving, you can see it doesn't have any stabilization. So stabilization is only available for Full HD 1080p 30 frames per second. A bummer, but otherwise, if I'm just standing still and just talking, it will probably look pretty good and comparable to the Huawei. So what do you think about the front-facing camera here on the Oppo Find X6 Pro? And now recording with the main camera of the Mate 60 Pro, f2. It has a variable aperture from f1.4 to f4, but by default it's recording f2 to give you a little bit more depth of field, but you still have the nice blurry background, I think, at least enough. And my dog is a little bit afraid of this statue. I will show it to you right now. Just go like this and go to the ultra wide angle 4K 30 recording. There we go. The ultra wide angle, I have to move my hand out of the way because the ultra wide angle is down there. You can see the dog is barking at this little head of a statue there, which is quite interesting. So we can even zoom on it if we want to. So let's try to zoom on it, like 4 times zoom. There you can see the statue, and I can even go to 10 times zoom. There you can see the statue, and here you can see Timmy barking at it and playing in the mud and in the dirt. There you can see it. So this is the zoom, and let's try out the Find X6 Pro. Recording with the Find X6 Pro 1-inch size sensor. Do we get a bit of better bokeh there? Let's go to this direction because this is the one that I filmed earlier with the Mate 60 Pro. So do we get a better bokeh there? For sure with the 1-inch size sensor. How's HDR? We don't have a very sunny day. It was raining in the night, so it's a bit of a cloudy day right now. So what do you think about this one here right now? Also, of course, we have also the possibility to go and switch to the ultra wide angle. I have a slider here, however. Now I slide it to the ultra wide angle. You see the ultra wide angle is not so ultra wide as it was on the Mate 60 Pro. And the dog is running around there. And what we want to do, of course, is also perform a zoom test. So 4K 30, we can zoom in on stuff. And there we can see this little head there, 1 time switch lenses, at 3 times it switch lenses, and then the rest is digital crop. This is 6 time, and now we managed to reach 10 times. So what do you think about this one here? This is 10 times now. I think it looks a bit clearer, at least on screen for me. What do you think about this one here? And let's go back to the 3 times. So this is 3 times, and there's Timmy again. He's not barking again. The statue, this is not 2 times. Let's go to 1 times. and yeah, 0.9 times 1 times switch lenses. So what do you think about the video quality here on the Oppo Find X6 Pro? Let's check out the videos. The Find X6 Pro on the left has a bit of better background blur for sure. You can see it especially when I go into full screen, and in comparison to the Mate 60 Pro, which has a little bit less of a blur in the background. The sharpness is almost the same, as you can see, but we have a difference in HDR. We have a bit of warmer face here on the Find X6 Pro, which is quite of interesting, but the sky is completely blown out, where the grayish kind of day the Mate 60 Pro is still capturing here behind my face. Also, it has a bit of more natural face color, I would say. At least it's not so warm, though sometimes it can get like a little bit pale looking, where it's a bit of more greenish kind of looking because of the green grass everywhere on the Find X6 Pro. But I think the Find X6 Pro is doing a slightly bit better as long as I'm not in too much shadow. As you can see, it's getting really too dark there. And when it comes to the ultra wide angle, I think the Find X6 Pro has some issues again with the colors. Let's go a bit further there. And in terms of sharpness and the wide angle of view, the Mate 60 Pro just offers a little bit of wider angle of view. Here you can see the sharpness all over the frame. And now let's compare it with the sharpness here all over the frame. You can see that we have a lot of blooming here on the side on the Mate 60 Pro, and here on the side as well. This becomes very apparent here. In terms of stabilization, both pretty good there. So yes, we have more punchy colors on the Find X6 Pro, but it is sharper indeed and doesn't have this fringing all around. And when we go to the zoom, this is now 3 times zoom versus, we go there, this is now 10 times, this is 4 times zoom, and as you can see here, both pretty much very much the same. Not even a color difference here, maybe a little slightly bit cooler on the Find X6 Pro. And when we go a bit further here, this is now 10 times, and we are going here 10 times. There we go. I think both doing very, very fine, very comparable. I see the Mate 60 Pro, especially here in the background, a bit, yeah, over sharpened for sure, but because it has to over sharpen a little bit there, because it has a smaller sensor. The Find X6 Pro does not need to do this. Also, it has a bit of a more bluish kind of color, where the Mate 60 Pro is much warmer. What do you think? Which one you think is better in terms of this? Let's go also full screen. You can see it is not 100% sharp. So this is something that I noticed with the Find X6 Pro, that it's not 100% sharp. This one is neither. As you can see here, this is much sharper, this is much softer. So both, I think, with the extreme zoom levels here, and this like weather almost on par, so no difference there, I would say, with both. In terms of zoom and colors, I preferred the Mate 60 Pro a bit better than the Find X6 Pro. That is crushing a little bit too much there, but basically both on par. When we take a look at the front-facing cameras, however, we see a big difference there. Of course, again, have a little bit like more contrasty look on the Find X6 Pro, a bit more brightened, maybe a bit overexposed look there, especially on my face. But we have also this little bit of gray here in the sky, so the HDR algorithm seems to be a little bit better. And when it comes to the colors, I like the colors of the Find X6 Pro a bit better because they're more natural, where the Mate 60 Pro has now the punch in the colors, which is quite interesting. And when it comes to stabilization, of course, the Mate 60 Pro is the clear winner here. But sometimes you get like this kind of shot where, yeah, I think it is doing a little bit too much with the HDR. And yeah, but the 1 time and the 0.8 time and super wide angle view on the Mate 60 Pro makes it, I think, the clear winner together with the stabilization in terms of video, front-facing video, the Mate 60 Pro. The photos on the left are the Find X6 Pro, on the right are the Mate 60 Pro. We start off with a low light, actually very low light night situation basically, just to show you the difference between the main camera sensor. Both are able to illuminate because I couldn't see this tiny house and the dog and the ladder there. And yeah, both struggle a bit. But when you take a look at the details, you can see the superiority of the Find X6 Pro's main camera sensor there. Also, I think the processing that took a little bit longer on the Mate 60 Pro is also making it a little bit blurrier there. When we take a look at the zoom lens, I think at 10 times zoom, the Find X6 Pro is a bit further away because it's 23 millimeters. The Mate 60 Pro is 27 millimeters main camera. So if you calculate 10 times zoom, it's a bit closer, but also more detailed there. We have a bit of a different color, a bit more punchy kind of colors. You can see it here on the Find X6 Pro. In this case, I think I like it a bit more because here's a little bit glooming going on in the Mate 60 Pro at 10 times, but the detail levels on the Mate 60 Pro are just simply a little bit better. Main camera sensor, again, we have a difference in colors. We have a bit better HDR on the Mate 60 Pro in comparison to the Find X6 Pro. Bit more bluish kind of sky here, a bit more sharpened up photo, and you can clearly see that yes, the color here is much more punchy on the Find X6 Pro. Of the green, the Mate 60 Pro more realistic. When we take a look at the various different differences here, you can clearly see the Mate 60 Pro is doing sharpening things up. Find X6 Pro is not doing this so much. The Mate 60 Pro slightly over sharpened here in the background. I don't like it so much, but the foreground I think looks a bit better. If I have to crop in, I would choose the Mate 60 Pro rather than the Find X6 Pro in this occasion. Maybe if the Find X6 Pro has more realistic colors, a bit more sharpening applied, it would help. Ultra wide angle is wider on the Mate 60 Pro, 13 versus 15 millimeters. Sharpness, the Find X6 Pro is sharpening a little bit more up, I would say. So we have a bit sharpening there. We have lots of glooming and we have chromatic aberrations definitely on the Mate 60 Pro, as you can see here. But we have therefore a bit of a wider angle of view. Otherwise, in terms of detail levels, yes, the Mate 60 Pro is also no slouch when it comes to sharpening things up, though here, especially in the green grass region, you can see the superiority of the Find X6 Pro because this is not over sharpening. This is a little bit sharpening on the Find X6 Pro, but it's also a superior sensor. When it comes to the 3 and 3.5 times zoom, there you can see the difference. I'm standing basically on the same spot. When I zoom in, we can see that the sharpening of the Find X6 Pro is much more subtle. It has still lots of details, but the Mate 60 Pro is doing a little bit too much with its algorithm here, so it looks a bit unrealistic there. However, what I like more is the bokeh here, which is a bit more fuzzy on the Find X6 Pro on this shot. When it comes to portrait shots, I only had Timmy as a portrait here, so I just kept this shot on the Find X6 Pro in because it's nice and sharp, and you can see the cutouts there and can compare it here as well with the Mate 60 Pros. That's much more warmer, and the colors, you can see how much gloomy it looks like on the Find X6 Pro for some reason. And also the next shots looks like a completely different day, where the Mate 60 Pro is more true to life. It's not a very sunny day, but it's like a cloudy day with a bit of warmth to it. And the Mate 60 Pro made this look like correctly, where the Find X6 Pro made it look like not correctly. Also here, I'm not sure the 3 times zoom, if it really kicked in and used the 3 times zoom, or it looks to be very, pixelated, and I think maybe it was cropping in from the main sensor, where the Mate 60 Pro used its 3.5 times zoom, and you can see here it's a bit better. So for portraits, I prefer the Mate 60 Pro there a little bit better. When it comes to the macro modes, super macro mode on the Mate 60 Pro using the telezoom lens and Find X6 Pro utilizing the ultra wide angle, I like the Find X6 Pro a bit better. You can see, by the way, the difference in terms of colors, and this is interesting because they almost swapped colors. No, the Mate 60 Pro is consistent with its colors, where the Find X6 Pro discovered somehow it's a little bit more yellow, this whole world here around me. So just a few meters away, you can see, yes, the macro and details level is okay. The Mate 60 Pro has a bit of a better angle of view, I would say, a little bit different angle of view there, more bokeh for sure as well, but it's heavily sharpening things up. And here you can see, this is what I told you always when it comes to the macro shots with the Mate 60 Pro. They look very fantastic sometimes, but sometimes they can look very horrible, like here, just simply over sharpened mess. Yes, there's a bit more detail there, but it looks too artificial, and I prefer the Find X6 Pro for the macro shot here. And the difference here is very interesting. Here the Find X6 Pro made it look a little bit flat, where the Mate 60 Pro made it a little bit more contrasty, and it looks more 3D on the Mate 60 Pro. And I think it's a bit soft here on the Find X6 Pro again. So yes, here I prefer the Mate 60 Pro against the Find X6 Pro, even though we have this nice background blur on the Find X6 Pro in this occasion. 10 times zoom again, not much of a difference. Again, the punchiness in colors here also on the sand, which looks a bit too brownish, reddish on the Find X6 Pro, and pale like it should be on the Mate X60 Pro. The same goes for the green grass. Detail levels almost the same. Bit glooming issue on the Mate 60 Pro for sure. Probably happening thanks to the periscope zoom. Otherwise, the Find X6 Pro here at 30 times zoom against the Mate 60 Pro, glooming on the Mate 60 Pro, but then otherwise 100%. It's like a contest of modern arts. Forget about it. And 3 versus 3.5 times zoom, again on first glance more contrasty, more punchy kind of colors on the Find X6 Pro. Mate 60 Pro sharper, a bit over sharpened for sure, but overall it looks to be a bit clearer than the Mate Find X6 Pro, so I prefer the Mate 60 Pro here. Again, here as well, there's a difference where I would say, yes, sometimes softness can help on the to make it more natural looking, but here the Find X6 Pro is just too soft. And I'm not sure if it's like misfocusing, but I don't see anything that maybe this tree is a bit sharper, but it's also sharper here, so I don't know what was happening there. It is much more detail in the Mate 60 Pro, and the green grass, yes, it's slightly bit over sharpened, but this is just too soft and too punchy on the Find X6 Pro, and this is like why I don't like it. And again, the zoom shots here, this is now the hybrid zoom, 6 times on the Find X6 Pro against 10 times on the Mate 60 Pro. Better colors on the Mate 60 Pro, and yeah, overall better. Where the Find X6 Pro is winning, definitely ultra wide angle here. The Mate 60 Pro is also good, but it's over sharpening, I think. And here you can clearly see it. And yeah, zoom shots here again. If I zoom in, you can see a bit more details on the Mate 60 Pro thanks to its better algorithms there, over sharpening for sure. But overall, I would say the win for the main camera, slightly Find X6 Pro. When it comes to the ultra wide angle Find X6 Pro, when it comes to zoom, I prefer the Mate 60 Pro, even though it can also sometimes fail when it comes to the macro mode. Both on par, Find X6 Pro slight edge because it's not over sharpening things up so much. If you want to have better colors on the Find X6 Pro, then let's take a look at the Pro mode and compare it with the Mate 60 Pro's Pro mode. So to show you the difference between the normal mode on the Find X6 Pro on the left and the normal mode on the Mate 60 Pro on the right, let's go and check the Find X6 Pro out when I go to Pro mode. You can see how much dramatic differently it looks like, and how much closer it looks like to the Mate X6 Pro. A little bit more contrasty look for sure, and a bit darker there eventually, but this is what it made out of this color here. So red, and this and that. And this is how it's supposed to look like, this darkish kind of red. And now let's take a look at this here. It's much closer. The red is much correcter. Yes, the Mate 60 Pro is still over sharpening. There's some weird noise going on here on the Mate 60 Pro, and it's a bit softer here, but the colors are much nicer on the Find X6 Pro. And also the sharpness is, I think, a little bit more there on the Pro mode. So whatever happened to, and here you can see also a difference, much more realistic on the Find X6 Pro. The Mate 60 Pro is a little raising the shadows here a bit, which make this little pot look completely different there. So also here, yeah, I think both doing a fine job. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but you can see here also a clear difference again. The Find X6 Pro's Pro mode, however, is notoriously bad with HDR, as you can see it here, where here I have nice clouds and HDR working fine on the Mate 60 Pro. So the colors are a bit better on the green grass, as you can see here, but still the green grass, for some reason, even in Pro mode, is a little bit too over punchy for my taste. Even though the Pro mode is what I would go with, I still have to take and crown the Mate 60 Pro as winner for point and shoot. I also discovered the Find X6 Pro's Pro mode difference in terms of colors by accident only. So this is why I'm not talking a little bit more about it here. But overall, I would say, yeah, Find X6 Pro has good potential, has a good camera system, but I prefer the Mate 60 Pros here.
and which one do you prefer? Write it down in the comments.
So here now a video with the Mate 60 Pro 4K 30 frames per second at nighttime. A light there on the side is a yellow kind of light. What do you think about stabilization, colors and noise? And yeah, I'm walking towards the Lidl now, which is a bit dark and I think it's closed already, but we will take some photos there to check out which one is better, the Mate 60 Pro or the Oppo Find X6 Pro. Now recording with the Oppo Find X6 Pro, same situation, yellow light on the right side. What do you think about this one here? How's good is stabilization? How good is my face illuminated in this nighttime situation? How good is the background blur if there's any? And how good is noise reduction here? And of course internal microphone, because I'm using the internal mics, car passing by right now. So what do you think about the Oppo Find X6 Pro?
At nighttime, sensors show their true potential, their technical potential, and here with the nighttime comparison Find X6 Pro versus Mate 60 Pro, it becomes apparent that the Find X6 Pro has a better main camera sensor. You can clearly see it here with the colors being more consistent, and the Mate 60 Pro doing some weird stuff. I really don't know what's going on. Color source is yellow, as you can see here, also yellow here, but for some reason the street looks like this magenta-ish and not this like yellowish like it should be. So weird things going on. Also some HDR issues on the Mate 60 Pro, where the Find X6 Pro shows its superiority, as well as the detail levels and colors. Look at the red here and the red there, and the details there, much more natural on the Find X6 Pro. Yeah, the main camera sensor of the Find X6 Pro is simply better. When it comes to zoom shots, however, it almost flips around, because the Find X6 Pro is very consistent for sure. A little bit overblown here, maybe also due to the larger sensor. So on first glance, the Mate 60 Pro looks a bit better because of more punchy colors, but you can see a lot of like issues that it has. So here, when I go into the middle, yes, Find X6 Pro has no chance against the Mate 60 Pro. But as soon as I go to the side here and look at this sign and look at the background here and compare it now with here, you can see the superiority of the Find X6 Pro's larger sensor. You can clearly see there's something written on the wall, there's graffiti going on, and the sign is much clearer, not so processed. Much more information on this little sign here that are just blurred out here, and it's just brighter in general. So the sensor size on the Find X6 Pro is better. The processing, however, seems to be, especially when it comes to fonts and text, much more aggressive, much better on the Mate 60 Pro here. As you can see, it's trying to process here this sign as well, where here it just kept it blurry, and yeah, the same you can see also here in the background where it's blurry. Yes, it's brightened up, it's blurry. This color is correcter on the Mate 60 Pro, it's more of a bluish light, where here it's a bit more warmish kind of light, but the difference here in terms of sensor size, you cannot ignore. The Find X6 Pro is just winning there at nighttime. At 10 times zoom, basically the Find X6 Pro redeems itself in terms of colors. The Mate 60 Pro does something weird with the colors, because it's not this correct color here anymore. But when it comes to processing, again, I think Find X6 Pro's processing is not good, and the Mate 60 Pro is better in terms of processing. Here looks more natural in this case. Also here, lots of artifacts. Not so much here on the Mate 60 Pro. So yes, the Mate 60 Pro is better, doing better here at 10 times zoom, even though we have a brighter picture on the Find X6 Pro. Ultra wide angle also very interesting, because the Find X6 Pro has the larger sensor, also a little bit brighter than the Mate 60 Pro. Mate 60 Pro is not doing so worse, I would say, in terms of detail levels and so on, because here, for example, the foreground, the car appears to be a bit clearer. It might be like over sharpening, and it's text rendering and optimization that's working again, but yeah, you can clearly see more of the car there, of the details, which is here completely in the shadow. So yes, at nighttime, the Find X6 Pro, with all its sensors, all larger sensors than the Mate 60 Pro, is crushing the Mate 60 Pro for sure. However, one major difference: selfie cameras. Here you can see the difference, both illuminating the face. However, the Find X6 Pro chose to illuminate with a yellowish kind of color, where the Mate 60 Pro used a whitish kind of color. Detail levels, Find X6 Pro has no possibility to compete against the Mate 60 Pro's superior sensor there. As you can see, very washed out. Even if I zoom out a little bit there to be on the same side there, you can see how much more details we have on the Mate 60 Pro, and my face looks much nicer there as well. And also the detail levels here compared to the detail levels there. You can see nice background blur. Here's like trying to over sharpen process and yeah, overblown, and yeah, it looks better simply on the Mate 60 Pro in comparison to the Find X6 Pro when it comes to selfies. So what is your opinion in terms of night photography? I think we have a definite winner, the Find X6 Pro, as long as you don't want to do selfies. Let's come to the ranking system, and here you can see the Oppo Find X6 Pro a little bit below the Huawei Mate 60 Pro. I would give it the win in terms of main camera photos. It is a bit soft sometimes and a bit wrong with colors. This is why I deducted 0.1 points here, which becomes very apparent when it is not completely daylight and very sunny. And the main camera is no slouch either on the Mate 60 Pro, but a bit worse there, especially in night mode. You will see it where the main cam quality of the Find X6 Pro is better. Ultra wide angle I would give to the Oppo Find X6 Pro 0.1 point more here, on 0.2 points actually more on the ultra wide angle. I think they optimized there a lot on the Oppo Find X6 Pro. Yes, it's a bit soft sometimes here and there, and the colors are a bit wrong, but I think overall it doesn't have chromatic aberrations and it is not getting so soft as the Huawei Mate 60 Pro, so slightly better there. On terms of zoom quality, I would say both on par. The Mate 60 Pro does a little bit over processing, over sharpening in terms of zoom, which sometimes leads to a bit weird artifacts. It is a bit sharper in general sometimes, where the zoom camera quality photo on the Oppo Find X6 Pro tends to be a bit softer, but it's not like completely too soft, I would say. Not like with the main camera photo quality, where sometimes I have the reason to believe it is a bit too soft there. And especially in low light, you can see that the zoom camera photo quality on the Oppo Find X6 Pro redeems itself. This is why it evens itself out, so it's balanced like there at 4.2. Video recording quality is basically the same with the slide edge for the Huawei Mate 60 Pro that has more accurate colors most of the time and deals with HDR a bit better. Oppo Find X6 Pro can be sometimes completely wrong with HDR, which is a bummer. Autofocus is basically the same. Front camera is a clear win for the Huawei Mate 60 Pro. It's sharper for videos, but also for photos for sure, has better HDR and is clearer for the photos. Camera UI, slight edge to the Mate 60 Pro. It has a pro mode for video, for example, where the Oppo Find X6 Pro has a movie mode, which also is some acting like a kind of pro mode, but then you can only record in 21:9. Extra features, we have a bit more extra features on Mate 60 Pro. We have, in terms of camera UI, also a bit slightly better UI for one-handed use and extra features in terms of, like, for example, what really strikes is the Oppo Find X6 Pro has very complicated to set up an external audio source. You have to go into two different settings of first of the device itself and then the camera app to choose the right audio source, which is simply not even a possibility on the Mate 60 Pro. It's just choosing automatically. But we have nano SD card, nano memory card support on the Mate 60 Pro that the Oppo Find X6 Pro lacks of, and a few shooting modes more on the Mate 60 Pro. So overall, this is the score. And when we take a look at the ranking list, yes, the Oppo Find X6 Pro was, I think, number 10 or something like this. Now it climbed up to number 3 thanks to its improvements in ultra-wide camera, and I think also its improvements in terms of video recording quality that got a little bit better in comparison to the completely wrong colors that we had on the Oppo Find X6 Pro with earlier firmware versions, which is nice indeed. So here you can see it. It is like a little bit better than the Huawei P50 Pro in terms of complete results, and better than the Xiaomi 13 Ultra for sure as well, but it's falling behind the Huawei P60 Pro and the Mate 60 Pro in that regard. I like the zoom camera photo quality here very much on the Oppo Find X6 Pro, especially when it comes to the lower light. When you have bright daylights, I think the Mate 60 Pro is a little bit better, but it's something there I have to give like another maybe point, like 4.2 and 4.21 or something like this. It's very hard to decide. This is why both are on the same, and the Huawei P60 Pro has I think, the best zoom photo quality when it comes to closer ranges. The P50 Pro and especially the Xiaomi are better when it comes to the reach, especially when it comes to 10 times zoom, for example, and the sharpness and beyond, for sure. And I think the king there is the Samsung with its 10 times optical zoom as well. Yes, the P40 Pro Plus also has a 10 times optical zoom, but it's just simply too old and its processing is lagging behind there, but it can keep up with the P60 Pro for sure. So that's everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have some questions, comments, you can write it down in the comment section. That's everything. Until the next time, bye.